Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching 90 Day Fiancé. Let's see what happens.
So now he's thinking about going to Serbia. It will work if I self-quarantine there. Then I can go to the US, meet him.
Oh, the same story. In Mexico, you do the mistake again.
But I don't have choice.
Okay, so once again, we're hearing a little bit more about how Amira sees the situation. That according to her, what she's telling her father is, I've got to go to Serbia and I don't have a choice because that's what Andrew wants me to do. And then obviously the father is like, wait, what? I don't want you to be detained again. I don't think this is a very good idea. I think this is taking place at the very beginning of the lockdown when there was just chaos around the world. So it makes sense that the father and Andrew's mother would both be concerned. What's interesting is that Andrew doesn't seem to have any concern or much concern at all. He seems to be very locked in. And my hypothesis about Andrew is that he probably comes from a life of a lot of attachment loss and a lot of self-esteem problems, I'm just guessing. And he sees in Amira his one chance to have love and to have attachment and to have security and to have a companion. And he believes if he doesn't get it right away, he's going to lose her. That if he doesn't get her to the United States and really lock that down and really have a strong relationship building a span of time, that Amira is far away and she'll fall in love with another guy and I will be alone. I don't know. Andrew hasn't said anything along those lines, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the motivation for going into denial of the reality of the dangers that Amira is going through. Now, we also don't see Andrew saying, I'm going to take the risks. I'm going to go to Serbia, you stay in France, and then I'll meet you in France or something like that. He's mainly putting it on Amira. Who knows if that comes from a place of privilege? Maybe there's at least a dash of that, if not a substantial amount of that. Who knows? But for Amira, we have seen her up until this point talking with her friend and talking with her dad and talking about how she's unsure about what she wants and she feels very pressured and she's very scared. But with Andrew, at least we haven't seen on camera Amira being very forward about that to say, Andrew, I don't want to do that and I'm scared of that and I don't think you're taking into account my feelings and I don't think you understand what I went through in Mexico. Now maybe they've had those conversations, but we certainly haven't seen those conversations. So you just have to wonder if there's this dynamic happening between the two of them where they have all these fears and all these worries, but they're not communicating that. If my hypothesis is right, which I really don't know, because they haven't shown a lot of clips of this couple, but let's say we go with this hypothesis that Andrew is terrified of losing Amira, and so he's really rushing forward because he's terrified of losing her. And he doesn't really trust her. He doesn't see her very often. He might even get a vibe that she's not even very honest with him, and that makes him a little scared as well. And then from her standpoint, she is worried about disappointing people for whatever reason. She seems to have that people-pleasing vibe, at least towards Andrew. Maybe Amira has some sort of traumas from her past that are being triggered in her relationship with Andrew. Maybe she really needs this to work out for some reason or another. I don't know. And so from Amira's standpoint, she's like, well, yeah, I think this is going to work out, and I do want this to work out. And I really don't know how to say no, so I'm going to go along with it because if I say no, maybe he'll reject me, and I don't want that to happen. But instead of just having that conversation with each other, Andrew would say, look, I've been pressuring you and I'm sorry. And mainly because I'm just worried I'm going to lose you. And I really just don't want to lose you because I love you so much. And I've lost people in my past. And I guess I'm just really paranoid that you're just going to leave me for another man. And then Amira would say, no, honey, I wouldn't do that to you. And thank you for acknowledging my fears. I don't want to go to Serbia. I want to wait till this whole thing at least blows over a little bit before I take any more risks because of what happened to me in Mexico. But I promise you, Andrew, I'm not going to leave you because of this. I want to be with you too. And then they could reassure each other and all of their, her people-pleasing behaviors and his pressuring behaviors would go down. I don't know. Let's continue watching.
I consider Serbia not respect for human rights. You must not take any risk.
Yeah, but Andrew is not gonna support
We don't
that way.
care about Andrew. You must not sacrifice for Andrew.
Okay, So we hear the dad arguing with her. She's saying, well, this is what Andrew wants. And the dad is now escalating with his frustration. We don't care what Andrew, we don't want you to sacrifice. We don't want this. Okay, so what's happening right now? So when you are a people pleaser, and I don't know if this is true for Amira, but if you are a people pleaser, or let me phrase it a different way. If you are near a people pleaser, if you have a friend who is a people pleaser, and you talk to them, it often will push the other person, the non-people pleaser person, to get very frustrated with the people pleaser. Because when you're observing a people pleaser, you're watching them ignore certain things that are important to them, and you're concerned about them, and so you kind of raise those concerns. Like, well, hey, Serbia is a dangerous place according to the dad. I don't know if it is or not. And there's risks here. Maybe you'll be detained again, and it would be worse than it was in Mexico, or at least as bad, and that was terrible. And Amira isn't really agreeing with that. She's not validating that. She's not saying, yeah, Dad, I totally get it. I'm worried about it too, and you're right to be worried. Amira's not saying that. Amira's just saying, well, that's what Andrew wants me to do, and you'll see that kind of behavior from a people pleaser person. Now, what is a people pleaser person? Well, typically, we might call them a dependent person. The internet will call them, or the world will call them, a codependent person. That's not at least the clinical literature term. We would use dependent. People-pleasing is another word. There's also schemas that are involved. Listen to all my deep dives on that. They're only for patrons of the podcast. I know a lot of you are patrons. Thank you for being a patron of the podcast, by the way. But basically what happens for those people, and Brandon is one of these people as well, possibly. I'd have to talk with him. Where you grow up in an environment where you're not allowed to assert yourself for whatever reason. And you don't ever really learn that it's okay to assert yourself. And you also learn that you need to depend on other people for your needs to get met. That in order for you to make any choice, in order for you to do anything, you always have to ask for help, and you always have to ask other people, what should I do here? It's hard for these people to do things on their own. Not because they're weak, but because they were never allowed to do that. It's like a skill. It's like if you've never ridden a bicycle, or you've never swam in the water, then if you jump in the water or you jump on a bike, you're not going to be very good at it, even if you're 45 years old. Well, it's the same with this skill. It seems like it's an automatic skill that people have, but it is not an automatic skill. It needs to be fostered in a relationship with caregivers who actually foster that assertiveness building in a child starting at the age of when they're 1, 2 years old, all the way up until they're 25. Where a child ventures off, maybe makes a mistake, comes back to you, and you say, well, yeah, you made a mistake, but you did good here and you did bad there, but, go back out there, you'll be okay. And allowing the child to go out, allowing the child to fall on their face a few times, being scared, but not overly scared, not overly protective, all this kind of stuff. Not putting a child down. And what you end up with, if you go through an experience where you're never given that chance, then as an adult, you literally just don't even know who you are. You don't know what you need. And you're always in a position of just trying to get everyone to be okay with you. Now, we see a lot more behaviors with Brandon in this respect. We don't see much of Amira because they just haven't shown us Amira very much. But we're seeing a little bit of it right now, where she's presenting a situation in a conversation that seems like it's not going to meet her needs, or there's a lot of risk there, and there's a lot of problems. And she's just like, well, this is what Andrew was saying. And then the father is coming out hard, and he's getting more and more angry. So in a systemic sense, what we see here is we have a 2-person system, or a 3-person system in a sense, but in the moment we have 2 people. And in this system, someone needs to speak up. Someone needs to say, no, this is crazy. You went to Mexico for him, and it was a disaster. Now he's asking you to go to Serbia, which could be the same, if not worse. Someone needs to speak up. Andrew's not speaking up. Amira isn't speaking up. So the father is speaking up. And we saw last episode where the mom was beginning to kind of speak up. And that's how systems work, is that someone needs to say something. And if Amira were to say that, then the father wouldn't have to say that. But maybe Amira can't say that because no one has allowed Amira to be competent and to be assertive and to know what she wants and to know what she feels. I don't know much about Amira, so I can't really say that with any confidence at all. But let's keep that in mind as we watch this dynamic.
He's not going to sacrifice for you.
My father reacts so strongly. He thinks that Andrew is pressuring me again. Maybe it's too soon to go to Serbia.
So we're hearing a little bit more from Amira. She's like, whoa, he's reacting so strongly. He thinks that Andrew is pressuring me. And then she says, maybe it is too soon. So again, we're not hearing from her. What does she feel? What does she want? Does she think it's too soon? Does she think Andrew is pressuring her? Does she want to go? Does she want to be with Andrew? We haven't seen anything to indicate that she even wants to. Maybe there was last episode. There was a little bit of statement from Amira or a couple episodes ago. Again, they haven't focused on her much, but I would want to know if I was talking to her, I'd be like, Amira, do you want to be with Andrew? Tell me how much you want to be with him on a scale from 1 to 100. Let me know from you. I could see her saying that she doesn't really know the answer to that question because no one's really asked her that question. She has a hard time answering those kinds of questions. Or she might answer the question in the way a lot of people answer. These dependent, people-pleasing people will often answer the question, well, I don't mind being with him, that kind of thing. We've seen this with other people. We've seen it with Brandon. We saw it with Stacy, with Darcy and Stacy. We kind of saw this with, who was Darcy's Tom? Tom was a bit of this way, and some of you have emailed into me. Sometimes I call these people leaves in the wind, and that they just go where the wind blows them and hope that they can get their needs met, and half the time their needs aren't being met, but they don't even necessarily know what their needs are. And some of you will email me and be like, oh my God, that's me. I am a leaf in the wind as well. Go to therapy. Find someone who specializes in this. All you have to do is call a therapist and say, hey, I'm a dependent person and I have a hard time knowing who I am and what my needs are, and just say, what would be your approach? And if they say anything that seems convincing, like, okay, it's a long-term therapy issue and it involves me actually asking you about what you want and how you got here, what early experiences resulted in you not being able to access those needs and your feelings. We would talk about assertiveness, and we'd spend a lot of time really trying to get to know who you are and what you want, because that's where assertiveness generates from. Assertiveness isn't just something you just do. It's something that you use to get your needs met. So I would really want to know from Amira, what's going on down there? What do you want? How do you feel? Let's see if she can say.
I understand.
He's telling me he sacrifices a lot for me all the time.
Why he didn't come to get you out from this detention center? Why?
He tells me that he didn't know where I was.
So I think that's true. I think that he didn't know. And even if he did know where she was being detained, I'm pretty sure he, as an American in Mexico, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have any power over the detention center and its policies and when they release someone. Maybe he would. I doubt it. But anyway, again, we're not hearing much from Amira of just like, I agree with you, Dad. It did hurt my feelings, or yes, I agree with you this, or I don't agree. Amira isn't saying anything about how she feels. What does she want? She's saying, well, Andrew wants me to go, and there's not a lot of indication of like who she is and what she wants. Maybe we'll get there.
He didn't move from the town he was. So.
No, he stayed there. He stayed in the vacation city.
He never tried anyway. He's a coward. I don't believe in him at all.
So maybe the dad is right. I think the dad has every right to be upset and to be worried for his daughter. But there's a possibility that the dad has been very dominant emotionally with Amira. I don't know this. Sometimes people on this show actually watch this YouTube channel. So, God bless you, father of Amira, if you're watching right now. I'm just taking a speculative guess here. What if the dad said, okay, you know what? I'm getting hot under the collar. Let me calm down. Amira, what do you want? I'm just going to tell you. I'm concerned about you. I'm worried about you. I obviously have an idea of what I would like you to do, but you know what? That's me. That's not you. Amira, what do you want? Do you love him enough? Because if you do, then I'll support this. Do you think the risk is worth it? Because if you do, I'm going to worry, but I will support you. But we're not hearing that from the father. We're hearing the father telling her what he wants. He seems like a nice guy, but that kind of approach to someone from the time they're born can create a dynamic where someone, Amira, an adult child, doesn't really know what they want because there wasn't space to explore that.
And now I'm doing it again.
Listen, Amira, this is the last time I talk with you about this point. No way to go to Serbia, to go to any country. I will not talk to you anymore.
All right, so it's escalating. We've gotten a little bit more detail between the dynamic between father and daughter. That I think he said that she is his only child and that she is everything to him. And that's great. He really loves her. He really considers her a big part of his life. That's great. Then we just heard for him, and he's probably flooded right now. He's really worried. And he might be worried about losing her. She's moving away. And then we have to ask, why she's so desperate to move away? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. And he says, if you do this, then we're done. I think that's what he said. Let's rewind that.
This is the last time I talk with you about this point. No way to go to Serbia, to go to any country. I will not talk to you anymore. Be careful, huh? This is the last time I told you.
That's,
Yeah.
You're telling me that?
Wait, maybe he's saying, at least I want to believe, that he's saying, look, I don't want to talk to you about Serbia anymore. If you go, you go. I still love you and we'll still talk, but you're stressing me out. So if you go, you go. If you don't, you don't. But I don't know what to do here, and so I don't want to talk about it anymore. Maybe that's what he's saying. At least I hope that's what he's saying.
I am heartbroken that my dad is threatening me not to talk to me.
Okay, so that kind of points in the direction of the prior interpretation that she's saying, I'm heartbroken that my dad is saying he doesn't want to talk to me anymore because of the alternatives that I'm considering. So we have to wonder, does that indicate a broader pattern between father and daughter that may have resulted in her developing dependency issues and a lack of self-esteem and lack of assertiveness, lack of connection with the self? I'm extrapolating on extremely limited information. With the other couples, there's more information to extrapolate on, but maybe we'll get more data let's just keep that in mind. There's also a possibility that the father's just really frustrated and he's just really scared and he doesn't know what else to do. And he sees his daughter doing things that he's just really, really frustrated with and very worried about. And he said something, but tomorrow or even an hour from now, he'd be like, honey, I'm sorry. I was really upset. I didn't mean what I said. Maybe it's just an innocent flare-up, if you will.
I feel torn. I am in the middle of my dad and Andrew. J'en ai marre, là. You see what you're telling me?
This is very, very important.
It's so tough. I don't know what to do.
So we're seeing a lot of information here. The father says, if you do this, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. We're done. And she's exasperated. She's like, oh, no, I don't know what to do. There are other responses. Another response would be like, hey, Dad, cool your jets. I'm just venting my feelings here, and I would appreciate a little bit of support here. Or, hey, Dad, you really hurt my feelings with that. That really hurts me. Or, hey, Dad, you know what? I get it. You're really upset. Just something more from a space of a foundation of your own wants and connecting with other people. A lot of dependent, people-pleasing, leaf-in-the-wind people, not only do they have a hard time connecting with their own needs, but they actually kind of have a hard time, even though they're people-pleasing, they have a hard time connecting with other people as well. Because in order to really connect with other people, you kind of have to be able to connect with your own feelings, not only to have empathy, because that's where empathy comes from, is that when other people are crying and sad, we feel sad on the inside, and that's empathy. And then we feel the sadness, and we go, oh, that person must be 10 times more sad than I feel right now because I'm just picking up on a little bit of that sadness. That's empathy. That's not the only definition of empathy, but that's one of them. So we see her reaction. She just seems kind of confused and exasperated, And then in the interview, she says, I don't know what to do, which is just a classic dependent leaf in the wind thing to say. Now, I'm not saying that's a choice. She literally probably doesn't know what to do. That's what dependency does to you. When you're not allowed to develop the self-esteem or even the practice of, what do I want? What do other people want? How do I manage this? How do I predict the future? How do I predict my feelings in the future? What are my feelings right now? It's a very complicated process figuring out what do I do and how do I move forward, even though there's all these influences and all these people wanting different. My dad wants one thing. My boyfriend wants one thing. What do I want? How do I, what's the best road forward? That kind of very complicated thing that you have to learn incrementally from the age of 2 forward. And if you don't have that, then you will frequently be stuck in this position of like, well, I'm trying to please everyone and I don't know what to do. We've seen Brandon do this in a very similar way, in that his mom and dad want him to do something, but Julia wants him to do something else. And Brandon is stuck and I don't know what to do. We're getting some pretty interesting details about her and her father's relationship and possibly the way Amira feels on the inside about herself. Let's continue watching. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself and take care of others because we all deserve it. We really, really do.